Shalom Mishpachim, welcome to His Narrow Bridge. Our time together today is meant to immerse ourselves in the Word of Yahweh. It is meant to be a personal time of connection to the Word for each of us. I will read each word as translated in English in an interlinear Hebrew Bible. These shows are pre-recorded, so I will be in chat when they air. Feel free to use the chat to post anything that comes to your mind as we read the word. We will begin with prayer, followed by time for each of us to say our own personal prayers. Our beloved friend Alan Horvath taught us, make Elohim number one on a list of one. We pray in the name of Elohim, which includes Yahweh, Yeshua, and the Ruach HaKodesh. Thank you, Elohim, for our lives and all you provide. We ask for a hedge of protection around our mishpacha as we pray and study. We love you dearly. We are your children. We come to you with questions as we seek our personal relationships with you. Please help us learn. If any darkness enters our time together, we ask you now to rebuke it. We will now listen to your word as we immerse ourselves in it and let it speak to us.
Acts chapter 9. Now Shaul was yet full of intimidation and the fury of murder towards the disciples of our Master, and he asked for letters from the chief priests to give to Darmsuk, to the assemblies, that if he should find men or women who follow in this path, he might arrest them and bring them to Jerusalem. And as he traveled and approached Darmsuk, suddenly a light from Shamayim shone upon him, and he was thrown upon the ground, and he heard a voice that said to him, Shaul, Shaul, why do you persecute me? It is hard for you to kick the stakes. And he answered and said, Who are you, my master? And our master said, I am Yeshua the Nazariah, he whom you persecute. But rise up and enter into the city, and there will be spoken to you concerning what you should do. Verse 7. Now the men who were traveling with him on the road were amazed because they heard only a sound, but a man was not visible to them. Shaul got up from the ground, and he was not able to see anything through his eyes, though his eyes were open. They brought him by his hands to Darmsuk, and he was not able to see for 3 days, and he did not eat and he did not drink. Now there was a certain disciple in Darmsuk whose name was Hananiah. And Master Yahweh said to him in a vision, Hananiah. And he said, Behold, it is I, my master. Footnote 100. Ha'ana is the Aramaic equivalent of Hineni, the famous Hebrew phrase uttered by Avraham when called by Yahweh. Behold, it is I, or here am I. Avraham responds to Yahweh during a time of testing. Similarly, Hananiah is being tested when asked to give aid to someone who could imprison him or even kill him for his faith. Being asked to go to the street called Straight is a major Hebraic idiom, as we are to walk the straight street when we live according to Yahweh's Torah. Verse 11. And our master Yeshua said to him, Arise, go to the street that is called Straight, and inquire at the house of Yehuda for Shaul, who is from the city of Tarsus. For behold, while he was praying, he saw a man in a vision whose name was Hananiah, who entered and placed a hand upon him so that his eyes might be opened. Footnote 101, the name Hananiah means Yah is merciful. The play on his name demonstrates the mercy about to be shown to Shaul through the restoration of his eyesight. This is only apparent in Aramaic. Verse 13, and Hananiah said, my master Yeshua, I have heard from many concerning this man how much evil he has inflicted on your set-apart ones in Jerusalem. And behold, even here he has authority from the high priests to arrest all those who call upon your name. Then Master Yahweh said to him, arise, go, because he is a vessel to me, chosen to carry my name among the Gentiles and among kings and among the sons of Israel. Footnote 102. Notice how Hananiah is reproved not by Yeshua but by Yahweh himself, as indicated by the Aramaic Mar Yah. This represents a profound dichotomy because Hananiah himself may not even be aware that the Father is responding to him. Hananiah's point is that those who proclaim Yahweh's Mashiach are being persecuted because they call upon your name. But Yahweh points out that it is his name in Mashiach that is being rejected. So when all is said and done, Shaul is preaching Yahweh's Torah instructions to the Gentiles. And footnote 103, see Gentiles and Ger Toshav in appendix. Verse 16, for I will reveal to him how much he will suffer because of my name. Footnote 104, Aramaic here presents a critical distinction lacking in Greek, once again due to the bifurcation of Marya, Yahweh, and Maran, Mari, Yeshua. Notice that a few lines above, Yeshua gives a command that is questioned. This act then prompts the speaker to switch from Yeshua to Yahweh. Therefore, it is Yahweh's name that Paul will suffer for. It is also important to note that while Yeshua was on earth, any teaching about Yeshua being Yahweh refers to the divine nature within him. Yeshua was both conceived through the Ruach HaKodesh, and he breathed the set-apart Ruach into his disciples. Here, the resurrected Yeshua speaks to Paul in the vision. Yeshua's human nephesh reanimated with his Ruach in a spiritual resurrection body as described by Paul in 1 Corinthians 15. Verse 17, then Hananiah went to the house to him and placed a hand upon him and said to him, Shaul, my brother, our master Yeshua has sent me. He who appeared to you on the road while you were coming, that your eyes might be opened and that you might be filled with the Ruach HaKodesh. Footnote 105. The origin of Semicha, laying hands, is with Moshe, who laid his hands on and passed his mantle of leadership unto Yehoshua, Joshua. The laying on of hands is not only for healings and miracles, but also to receive the Ruach HaKodesh for understanding and instruction. Acts 6:6, 7:41, 8:17 through 19. It is only through the work of the Ruach HaKodesh that we understand Yahweh is Yeshua the Mashiach. Matthew 16:17, 1 Corinthians 12:3. See Yahweh is Yeshua the Mashiach in appendix. Verse 18, and at once something that resembled scales fell from his eyes, and his eyes were opened. And he arose and became immersed, and he received nourishment and was strengthened, and was with the disciples, those who were in Darmsuk. And immediately he was in the assembly of the Yehudians, preaching about Yeshua, that he was the Son of Elohim. And all those who were hearing him were amazed, and they were saying, was not this he who was persecuting all those who were calling on this name in Jerusalem? He was sent even here for this same reason, to bind and take them away to the chief priests. Verse 22. Now Shaul was more so strengthened and was confounding those Yehudians who were dwelling in Darmsuk, while he was revealing that this is the Mashiach. And after many days increased to him there, the Yehudians made treachery against him to kill him. But the plot was shown to him, to Shaul, that they were seeking to do to him, and they were keeping watch of the gates of the city day and night to kill him. Then the disciples placed him in a basket and let him down from the wall during the night. And when he went to Jerusalem and desired to join the disciples, but all of them were afraid of him, and they did not believe that he was a disciple. But Barnabas took him and brought him to the Shlichim, and explained to them how on the road he had seen Master Yahweh, and how he spoke with them, and how boldly he spoke in Darmsuk in the name of Yeshua. And he went in with them, and he went out into Jerusalem. And he, Rav Shaul, was boldly speaking in the name of Yeshua, and disputing with those Yehudians who knew Greek, but those desired to kill him. Footnote 106. Notice that Rav Shaul brings a Greek interpreter, Barnabas. Rav Shaul obviously doesn't have the strong command of Greek necessary to address the more advanced and complex concepts of the Malchut Elohim. At other times, Paul travels with interpreters Silas and Timothy, who help him compose letters, 1 Thessalonians 1:1, 2 Thessalonians 1:1, or he is with Mark, who joins him on a missionary journey, or Paul is with his traveling companion Luke, who is by far the most talented bilingual interpreter in the New Testament. Verse 30. And when the brothers knew, they brought him to Caesarea by night, and from there they sent him to Tarsus. Nevertheless, the assembly that was in all Yehud and in Galilee and Shamrin now had peace in it. It grew, being built up and instructed in the fear of Elohim and in the comfort of the Ruach HaKodesh. Footnote 107. Those who fear Yahweh receive the comfort of the Ruach HaKodesh that brings peace and contentment into the soul. Hear the word of Yahweh, that you that tremble at his word. Isaiah 66:5. The fear of Yahweh is truth. The fear of man brings confusion. Instead of fear, we should substitute pitching tents with Yahweh. Isaiah 66, verse 5. Hear the word of Yahweh, you who tremble at his word. Said your brothers who hated you, who cast you out for sake of my name, let be glorified, Yahweh, that we may see your joy, but they shall be ashamed. Verse 32. And it happened that while Shimon was traveling in the cities, he came down also to the set apart believers who dwelled in the city of Lud. Verse 33. And he found a certain man named Annas, who was lying on a pallet and was a paralytic 8 years. And Shimon said to him, Anya, Yeshua the Mashiach heals you. Arise and make your bed. And immediately he arose. Footnote 108, afflicted one. Verse 35, and all who saw him who dwelt in Lud and in Saron turned to Elohim. Now there was a certain disciple in the city of Joppa whose name was Tabitha. Footnote 109, Aramaic name meaning gazelle. This one was rich in good deeds and in the aims that she did. Now she became ill in those days, and she died, and they washed her and laid her in an upper room. And the disciples heard that Shimon was in the city of Lud, which is on the side of Joppa. And they sent to him 2 men to request of him that he not delay to come with them. And Shimon arose and went with them. And when he came, they brought him up to the upper room and gathered. And all the widows stood around him weeping and showing to him the coats and cloaks, those that Tabitha had given to them while she lived. But Shimon put all the people out and bowed down upon his knees and prayed, and he turned to the corpse and said, Tabitha, get up. And she opened her eyes, and when she saw Shimon, she sat up. And he stretched out his hand and raised her up, and called to the set-apart believers and to the widows, and presented her to them alive. And this thing was known in all the city, and many believed in our Master. And he was in Joppa not a few days, lodging in the house of Shimon the tanner.
Einstein formulated the theory of relativity. I'm riding a train. That's what we know. But what do we see? Am I moving? No, the world is moving. Our concept of motion in space is relative. Even without delving deeply into the theory of relativity, we understand that the descriptions of a moving object and a stationary object lose their significance. Instead, we speak of relative motion. The theory declares that there is no absolute motion and no absolute space. Therefore, there is no meaning to the argument of whether the sun or the earth is a moving object. According to the theory of relativity, both assumptions have equal justification, and no experiment can decide in favor of one or the other. The water waves expand in concentric circles. One wave is passing simultaneously through the 2 slits of the panel. Each slit acts as a center of a new system of concentric waves, and each system affects the other. At certain points, they cancel each other out, and at others, they reinforce each other. This phenomenon is called interference. In 1905, Albert Einstein found that light is not emitted continuously, but in individual packets, quanta, that resemble particles. From that point on, modern physics was confronted with conflicting findings. On the one hand, Young's experiment showed that light is a wave phenomenon. On the other, Einstein showed that light is emitted in particles, called photons. A paradox indeed. Moreover, in 1924, the French scientist de Broglie suggested that the tiny particle of matter, the electron, also behaves like a wave. Scientists then extended this paradox to the other elementary particles, protons, neutrons, etc. In 1927, Werner Heisenberg determined that in the subatomic world, one cannot measure accurately the location of a particle and its velocity simultaneously. The act of measurement itself affects the behavior of the particle. We cannot predict the location of particles at any given time. The key equation of quantum theory, the Schrödinger equation, describes only the probability of their location. We call these waves of probability. Let us assume that several individual electrons were fired in succession when only one slit was open. The electrons hit the photographic plate and formed an illuminated band opposite the open slit. Then several individual electrons were fired when both slits were open, leaving tracks appearing as alternating light and dark bands. These tracks are typical of the interference that occurs when a wave passes through the two slits. This leads us to the conclusion that each of the electrons passed through both slits simultaneously. That cannot be, but it's a fact. The first photograph proves that the electron behaves like a particle, but in the second, it behaves like a wave. How can an electron pass through two slits simultaneously if it's an elementary particle and cannot be split in two? Perhaps we can determine which of the two slits the electron actually passed through. No, it emerges that if we place detectors alongside each slit, we will effectively prevent the electron from behaving like a wave and force it to behave like a particle. This leads us to a far-reaching conclusion. Nature changes its behavior when man observes it. When there is a human being measuring the phenomenon, the electron is behaving like a particle. If nobody observes it, it behaves like a wave. Nobel laureate Eugene Wigner proved that the change in electron behavior cannot be affected by devices or animals that, unlike human beings, do not have free will. Inanimate objects alter their behavior only when a human being is observing them. In other words, the object is transformed into waves of probability that fill all space and attest to the likelihood that the object will be situated at a given point, at a given time, and will have certain physical qualities. But a physical object cannot be situated in two places at the same time. Hence, we may conclude that there is no physical reality unless it is observed by man. Observation by a human being with free will causes a wave of probability to collapse into matter. Only man has free will that is not subject to the laws of nature. Thus, the very act of human observation imparts meaning and significance to reality. If man is not observing a given object, then from a scientific point of view, it doesn't exist. But quantum theory leads to even more significant conclusions. If human observation causes the wave of probability to collapse into matter, then man becomes a partner in creation, in restoring the world from a state of chaos into a state of order. Man becomes a practical partner in creation. This is a conclusion of physics more than 2,000 years after the ancient Greek scientists, 300 years after Newton. Astounding? Surprising? That depends to whom. People familiar with the Torah need not to be surprised. Describing the creation, the book of Genesis says, which God in creating had made. What is the reason for this apparent redundancy in the phrase, in creating had made? Our sages explain it as a directive to the object of creation. God is a creator and man is a maker. It's mankind's job to complete and improve creation. The Jerusalem Talmud relates to the subject more intensively. In Tractate Ketubot, our sages declare that the changes taking place in human body due to aging adjust themselves to leap years. Leap year is determined by man who observes the moon, and nature adapts itself to human observation. Our sages thus predated modern physicists by 2,000 years. Their conclusion is identical to that of quantum physics. Man, observing nature, affects behavior of material objects. I know that there have been contradictions in the past. At different times, different scientific pictures, such as the eternity of matter from Aristotle's day. And the Rambam said in the Guide for the Perplexed, in these matters, take no notice of the words of any man, for it is the foundation of our faith that God created the universe from nothing. The time did not exist before because it depends on the motion of the sphere, and that too was created. So you have matter, time, and space created simultaneously. And if you read Einstein's general relativity, that's what it's all about. Matter, time, and space related to one another. According to most modern science, the future is not predetermined. Man certainly has free will. The very development of science and intensification of human knowledge invalidates what was long believed to be the most serious conflict between science and Torah. Science is changing steadily, sometimes leaping from one extreme to another. Karl Popper, the greatest contemporary philosopher of science, claims, science doesn't seek the truth, but only the best generalization of all that is known to date. Such generalizations alter and disprove one another. This is the nature of science.
В моем понимании, наука и религия.
To the best of my understanding, science and religion do not conflict, but rather complement one another. Moreover, I assume that religion should be understood as a system of ideas that augments the data obtained by science, yielding a complete system of knowledge. This system enables people to find their way through the unknown, the unexplored, the mysterious, and thus is of benefit to the scientist.
I think that we have to understand that there are two different things. Religion explains the world, says why. Science says what. Science describes the world as we see it. Religion gives it meaning.
I think that in the 21st century, science and religion will enrich one another.
We believe that the absolute truth has to be found in another source. The Torah is a Torah of truth, the truth which is fixed and eternal, the truth which leads all creation to the era of Mashiach.
For more information about these videos, look at the video description and click more. You can then have links to my YouTube channel and the YouTube playlist, which has all the Aramaic English New Testament videos, Bible Hub links, and Odiote. So this is useful because you can click a chapter and go word by word through the scriptures and get details about each word and where they are used throughout the Bible.